Eccoci.
There we go. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for having decided to following this event, Art Embraces Politics. I'll be very quick. First of all, I would like to thank Robert Biedron, the chair of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality. I would also like to thank Maria Soraya Rodriguez Ramos. She is the coordinator for Renew Europe Group in the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality. I would like to thank them in advance for partaking in this event and for having supported this initiative. Today, we have the opportunity to listening to two artists. I would like to start by providing you with some context for this event. First of all, there's Juliana Notary. She comes from Brazil, and she's an experimental artist. She once said something which is fairly pertinent to today's event. She said that art is provocation. Art shouldn't give answers. It should ask questions. It should also provide us with ways to read the world and understand that we are today. And this is quite an important message to pass on to politics as well. Politics should provide answers to today's problems. Nespoon comes from Poland. She's a street artist. And she has been uniquely able to combine an ancient art, such as lace, and a more contemporary male-dominated art, which is street art. So she climbs buildings 30 meters tall when it's hot, when it's cold. So it's something that's quite demanding on a physical level too. This is a sign of emancipation and freedom of expression. And these are two more values that this institution should protect. So thank you for having answered our call, and thank you for having joined us, and I will give the floor to Roberta. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me. I will switch to English if that's okay with you. I am very happy to be here with you today.
First of all, let me congratulate Marco for this event. I think it's very important, so thank you very much for your team for organizing it. And thank you for the artists for being with us. And don't be afraid that the room is empty. This is how we work now. We work mainly remotely, so they watch you, they see you virtually. So this is how we proceed in this house now. I know it's strange, but this is how we are used to work now due to COVID-19 pandemic. And welcome in the House of the European Democracy. And when I've seen the title of this exhibition, I must say I was afraid, because whenever politics engaged in arts art embraces politics, then I feel that there must be something provocative and something happening, because when politicians mess with art, there is always censorship, there is always limitation, there is always something wrong. I don't want politicians to mess with the arts, and this is the case. So I'm very curious what will happen of this debate and what kind of art it is. And that's why I'm also very proud that I'm participating in this moment with two famous artists, the one Juliana Notary and Nespoon, both of them doing this interesting art, as Juliana said, provocative art, forcing us to give our own answers. And I come from Poland, the same country Nespoon comes from, and I must say, she's a great artist from Poland. She's very recognizable, not only in Poland, but all around the world. She does an excellent street art, which, as Marco said, is very much dominated all around the world by men, and then we have brave women doing that. Brave women also facing something in the art that we see in politics, the backlash. Backlash of the women's rights, backlash which we are seeing not only in Poland, but all around the world, that women's emancipation, women's fight for dignity, women's fight for equal rights is confronted with this terrible backlash of people who, from different angles, from different perspectives, are angry, are disagreeing, are violent, are provocative, with one goal: to stop women's emancipation. And that's why I'm so proud to participate in this meeting, because this is another proof for me that women are aware of their rights. Women know that it's 2022 and nothing will stop them. Nothing will stop them not to exercise their rights. You are unstoppable, and your art is unstoppable. Your art is going beyond everything, and this is so excellent. A few days ago, I was passing by to this house, and I've noticed a beautiful art on the street. This was an art done, jak jest koronka?
Lace.
Lace. It was a lace hanging on the tree in the colors of Ukrainian flag, done by one of our guests here today, whom I also want to welcome. And then I thought, this is what we need. Politics must go also outside of this house. We must embrace also the words, not only the art, but we as politicians, with our message, we should also go out of this house. Our guest is not a politician, but her work is clearly political. The message is clearly political. Look, this is political message, what is she doing now? So it's clearly political, and that's why I admire this work, and I'm very honored to be today here. And what you do is important for millions of girls and women all around the world, because you are role models for them. You are superheroes for them. Yeah, you are, because you're showing them the power, you're showing them the strength, you're giving them courage, you're giving them the energy to bring the change. And I know how important it is in politics. Here in this room, I see Isabella, I see many women also online, and in this house there are many women who are giving courage and strength. I see Soraya, who is working with me in the committee, an excellent female leader, giving an example and strength and courage for millions of girls and women to bring the change, to make the world safer place. And we are talking, this will be my final remark. This event is taking place in special place, but also in special moment, where millions of girls and women are fleeing their homes, are escaping the bombs, are escaping the Russian soldiers who sexually abuse them, who use violence, and who invaded their country. And I think in this special moment, we need more people like you, who give women hope as well. Not only power, not only strength, not only courage, but also hope that the peace is possible, the safe world is possible, and that one day we will live in the world where everyone is equal and no one has to escape from the home because of the bombs or whatever reason. So thank you for your excellent work and your courage and your strength. Good luck and welcome in this house. Thank you, Marco. Grazie, Marco.
Grazie, Rob.
Thank you, Robert. Also, thank you for being here. I understand you will have another meeting shortly, so you will have to leave us. I believe at the end of this debate, we will positively impress you. I will now leave the floor to Maria Soraya. Thank you.
Spanish, hay translation. Pues muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
First of all, I wanted to thank my colleague Marco Zullo. Thank you very much for putting this most interesting event together. Thank you for your organizing efforts. Today, we will be talking about art, about politics, and about gender equality. I think this context and this mixture was most challenging, and you have managed to come up with this vision and to organize this event. Today we are here sharing the same table along with Juliana Nodari and Nes Boon, who are two most remarkable artists. I will not talk for a long time so that they will have an opportunity, rather, to explain their art and why they do it. It is also a pleasure to be able to share the same table with the president of the Committee on Women and Women's Rights and Gender Equality at the European Parliament. As you have already noted yourself, it is a blessing to have someone as him leading this committee, given that he is a most inspirational and reivindicative person. I have to say I had a similar impression to what Robert has referred to when I first heard the title, Art Embraces Politics. I was a little shocked by this title. Well, I was thinking about how do non-artistic people feel art? How do we experience it? Because some people have said in the past that art lives within us all, even though we may not all be artists, or we may not all be able to produce artistic works that would be worth displaying in a museum. We are still able to perceive art and to experience it a certain way. And it is true, art has populated the different periods and times of the humankind, back from the prehistory period up until today. And you are an example of this, because art is a very strong form of expression, and it is not only an aesthetic expression, but it is also a very powerful tool to stir feelings in the audience, and to also to call to our most profound and intricate gut feelings. Sometimes we are embedded in our reality and there are things that we don't understand, and art is a tool to help us understand our context, and it is also a tool to call to empathy. It is also a tool to raise awareness collectively. Art is a tool like no other to achieve all of this and to shape people's reality. It is also a means to achieving political agreements, and it is also a very powerful tool of propaganda. Political propaganda can also be a tool. Many totalitarian regimes over time have used art as a means of propaganda, and in fact, when totalitarian leaders come to power, what they first do is destroying many pieces of art that go against their interests. And they also use it to serve their own purposes. In a nutshell, I think art through history has also helped raise concern, or raise awareness rather, about some issues where politics sometimes is too blind to talk about them. I think it's also extremely important that women take an active role in art, because we are also shaping what is happening to us as a society. Therefore, if we're to speak as a society, it's very important that the 50% of the population is also going to shape this vision. I think the view of women in arts is extremely valuable, because it also includes their perception and their vision onto the greater vision that we have of our societies. I wanted to conclude by saying the following. It's very important to develop every artist's own voice. And here today we have two most interesting proposals. But I wanted also to say that in order for artists to be free, they need to enjoy economic freedom. In many cases, this is not the case. I wanted to illustrate this by some figures. In the EU, women in art only represent between 3 and 5% of the art collection in museums. In the United States, we find 5% of works of art displayed in museums are done by women. Only between 10 and 14% of art awards, all categories comprised, have been awarded to women. I would like to take my country as an example. If we take the example of Spain, we can see in fine arts academies, most students are women. However, when it comes to recognition and prestige, it is mostly men who are able to make it and to actually make a living out of their artistic career. Why is that? Well, they earn more money out of their work. I don't want to blunder you with all of these figures, but we can see that there is structural inequality also in the world of arts. And this is also the consequence of another fact that I wanted to share with you. Let's take my country as an example again. Young artists between 21 and 30 years old, we see that 62% of these group of artists are women. Students, young artists, they represent 62.5% of artists, young artists in Spain. But let's now look at the group of artists aged 70 who has managed to be established throughout their career by being an artist. We find only 23% of this group are women. And this is a clear-cut example of structural inequality in art. We do not only find this inequality in the world of arts, but this is also an example, and it showcases what happens in the rest of society and on all of the rest of professions. We need a more plural, diverse society, and women artists and women in art are going to help showcase and shape this reality. And I wanted to conclude by thanking the President, Biedron, and also MEP Marco Zullo. And also thank you very much for our two artists here present. It will be a pleasure to get to know your work.
Grazie, Maria Soraya.
Thank you, Maria Soraya. Please, Juliana, the floor is yours.
Ok. Boa tarde, né? Primeiramente, eu gostaria de agradecer o convite ao eurodeputado Marco Zullo por estar aqui, né? E a toda a sua equipe que trabalhou para que esse evento
and all our team that made this possible, and you all. And to all those who are on social media following the event. My name is Juliana Notari. I'm a visual artist. I was born in Recife. and this is in the state of Pernambuco, the northwest of Brazil. I've lived in other countries, in other cities of Brazil, but presently I live in Olinda. It's World Heritage, actually, from UNESCO. Well, I have been working for more than 20 years, and despite the fact that I work with different models, video, installations, sculpture, interventions, I think in my performance I get to best for my art, and I show you these types of works that you are seeing now on the video are some of the three examples that I decided to show you for my performances. I think that performance is an expression that allows us to live. It's experience of the East, and I try to transform through my poetry, and it's in the performance that I find this place. A place within the aesthetic has a subjective in a most effective way. Many artists have chosen this to free themselves, because than sculpture and painting, and it's an expression that we see in a lot of museums. Well, in the 20th century, we've seen this type of work to open way to show our ideas. In all the languages, contemporary languages that we see, the performance and as an aesthetic experience has a very privileged position and fertile, and allows the inclusion of consensus, because its language on its own can come senses that escape and go beyond the art field. As an artist and participating in this event of political art, I would like to quote Jacques Rancière, French philosopher. For him, every policy, as politics, as art, has a statistic or statical character. Well, art and politics is characterized by its suspicion of rules. So, this way, the aesthetic experience in both in politics and art has a role to rupture with normal consensus. Well, this way we question ourselves, the way we live in our daily life, and we can invert the order that has been established, create new relationships between reality and appearance, not just individually but also collectively. Static would cross all the political spectrum, and art would be the field that would welcome to explore it, the impossibles, and the expression of what until then it would not be possible for the rational thinking, and that would be make us think what could be possible and what we think it's possible. So that's the reason why art has a potential to think to the future, to see the future. So I understand that based on the challenges that are the social, economic and ecological of today's world, art is important and asks questions, demands us to research based on the contemporary art. And the art has the capacity to provoke instability in the way we see things and to feel things, and reactivate our sensibility and the part of our individual. Thinking behind, and all these 20 years of as an artist, I think that my main interests are the experiences that I live in creating works and the sensations that I create through and thinking about the participation of the spectator. I try to give a way of my body, and body is not only present in the performance, but also in objects, drawings, interventions, combined with human beings, but not human. It's important to say that when I refer to body, I also think about the thinking. There's no there's no powerful thinking without a body, because body is the main expression that I have. It's also very often in my works. It's followed by certain subjects: sexuality, born, birth and death, feminism, trauma, perversion, meeting humans and animals. Despite of all that, all these subjects in my works is also crossed by sexuality. Our works always dialogue with subterranean subjects and desires. And these are always put apart from a human being. And with this society that we have, which is conservative, I want to take away those layers from that the society does not want to see. That's why the subject of death and sexuality are the main subjects. And these are taboos. Taboos because they are very revolutionary. The capitalistic neoliberal system does not want to deal with death. The conscience of limits is something that disturbs the society. We think about producing goods for the satisfaction and evolution of society. So this is not progress. We don't want this type of capitalism. We don't want capitalism because those who are conscious of this is not a good consumer. And because of this, we need to find ways to be better, have more powerful body and thinking. Only this way we can resist the logic of the phallic thinking of capitalism, because it does not consider the different ways of living, as if in the world everything was unlimited. This is the reason why we are living a climate crisis, and we have to think about it. We're knowing that the body is also a land or field of battle. 5 centuries since the patriarchal has found the colonialist system, that we have to think about territories and bodies against which we are fighting. That black bodies have been barbarized during slavery. Indigenous have been victims of extermination during the colonization of Americas, and women are victims of persecution and dead during the witch hunting period. In different ways, these bodies and others are still being repressed, mutilated, or even killed. Violence finds new weapons, more creative and sophisticated. This reinvention of weapons are still working at full speed, because this patriarchal capitalism is trying to kill them, so they need to be controlled permanently. What do we want to shut up in these bodies? Why do we want to oppress and silence? The bodies of women is one of the focus of interest of my artist research. Through them, I try to reflect on the millenniums, the thousands of years of the control of women, and to bring this process of inferiorization and silencing that the patriarch has imposed, trying to reduce these bodies to just a workforce. For centuries, the feminine body is a field of battles, right for the right to vote, right to have its own body, to do whatever they want, reproduction, fight against violence, same equal salary for all of us, and then race and sexual orientation, among other battles. The disconstruction of these principles, which are reaffirmed by the practical speech, is a continuous battle that needs to be fed permanently. And this kind of narrative does not reflect the domination of man on women, because the concept includes a very big spectrum. Because the patriarchal has been always present. It dominates not just in the state, but in the body of all the members which are part of a human being, and all the knowledge areas. Well, the patriarchal ideology changes our way of feel, think, and desire. Despite of the conquest of the last centuries, the majority of women and the trans women, they are victims of violence, inequalities, and death because of their gender and sex. And it's important to underline that violence and inequalities raise absurdly if we use the criteria of race, and geographic location. The poor women, who are not white, they are the most being victims of this logic, neoliberal logic. In Brazil and Latin America, this data is saddened. There's a body who did a study that shows that more than 100 girls and women have been victims of sexual violence between March 2020 and December 2021. Women, or Brazilian women, have been victim every 10 minutes of rape, feminicide in this period. And in Latin America and Caribbean, according to data of this observatory, named CEPAL, in 2000 alone, more than 4,500 feminicides have happened. In Brazil, despite transphobia being a crime since 2019, despite of that, we are on top for the last 13 years of trans being victim, where transsexual are being killed, among which globally 96% of the killings are trans women or trans feminine people. Brazil has concentrated 40% of the feminicide, and between 156 countries, we are 96th place in parity, gender parity, and 26 analyzed in Latin America. Our country is the 25th according to Global Rented Shadow Report 2021 of the Economic Social Forum, FEM. Last but not least, I'd like to remind that the human rights of women include their right to have control and decide freely and its own responsibility about any subjects related to its sexuality, including sexual reproduction, health, discrimination, and violence. So, and this is fundamental to reach equality, gender equality, without which we will never get the sustainable development. We need to remember that in Brazil, violence against women's body is not only physical, it's the machismo, misogynias in the politics. In 2016, we had a former president, Dilma Rousseff, who was impeached. It was a coup. It was clearly saying, we do not want women. Society meant it, and Greek media, who built an image to being a discontrolled person. As she said during one of in Senate in 29th of August 2016, there's always a misogynist and a preconceived ideas in women in everything that's happened to me, said she. This component shows the hate that of society against women that has public positions. This happened. Why? Because Dilma Rousseff was the woman who was occupying a position, political position, and this is seen by society as unacceptable. This month, it's been 4 years that Marielle Franco was killed by a brutal killer. She was from Rio de Janeiro. She was executed in the central area of the city. The criminals were inside a car who approached the car from this politician. They both killed the politician as well as the driver. And until today, this killing was not did not have someone killed. She was spokesperson to many minorities. She was black. She was from a favela, like the most disfavorable person. She was black, I said. She was a woman. She was victim of all. She was lesbian. which means that she's also part of another group which is attacked by homophobics. And with all these identities, she was an explosion of force. She represented the several political struggles and fights that has been massacred, but who are still resisting, including through her memory.
Artista visual, militante.
As a woman, a visual artist, a left-wing militant, and living in the global south, I was always affected by a number of gender violences. These kinds of violence are present in my artistic work, but it's important to point out that the feminist aspect of my work has become highlighted by the entire feminist movement and its strength in past years. Perhaps feminism is currently the most important protagonist of the fight against neoliberal policies. My work is uncertain in the feminine struggles, but I think it also reaches those questions through a traumatic dimension based on the body. I will talk about 3 works, some of which you've seen already in the screen. These are works of art that establish a dialogue with violence. They are part of the research I've been developing over the years on gender and sexism. I am interested in questions linked with the female body, as opposed to a society which is proud of the virility of phallocentric society. For more than 20 years, the image of the vulva or the wound is present in my work. This is an image of the violence women suffer over history. It all started in 2001 when I found in a used objects shop, I found 20 speculoos, the gynecological objects. I remember feeling the cold feeling of that metal in my body, which is used for science. So I wanted to use that object to express my feeling in my artistic work. Together with that, I saw that all those instruments had the name of the previous doctor, a woman that had used them. In 2003, I opened other cavities. So I started my Dr. Diva performance. I started opening holes in the walls of galleries and museums. Spaces that were usually very clean and white, so they are very neutral. I was dressed in white like a doctor to bring about all these symbolic images of medicine, and I was breaking those walls until I could not anymore. So I was opening those wounds and I was painting them with cow blood, and then I inserted those speculums that I had found. I also work with video performance. Amuamas is the name of the work. I did it in the city of Belém, in the north of Brazil, in the Amazon forest. In Amuamas, I also opened a big wound in the body of an ancestral tree. This is a work that has a lot of mystical force. I was using surgical instruments and my own menstrual blood collected over 9 months, and I found that very large tree, the Samaúma, which is the sacred mother of the forest. That was a ritual where I opened the tree and left my mark in the forest. Samaúma is one of the largest trees in the Amazon, and it's considered by many forest peoples as the sacred mother of the forest. It has very deep roots, as well as external roots, the sapupemas, which are used by the forest peoples for communication. It is surrounded by a number of mysteries, and it has a number of medicinal and spiritual properties. According to some Amazonian tribes, the water from its trunk led to the creation of the Solimões River. For other ethnicities, it links the earth to the sky. It's the link between the human and the spiritual worlds, and it symbolizes immortality. After I opened that wound, that vulva wound in the Samauma, I painted with my own menstrual blood, and then I included cotton balls and the speculum inside the wound. As such, I created a common wound which symbolized the pain in my body and the trauma in my body. The intention was not to harm, but to heal. And over time, that wound is going to heal itself, which shows the forest of the tree of the forest and my own body. This was a rite that was creating a wound while knowing that my gesture is nothing compared to the enormous size of the nature that we're inserted in. That reminds me, Ailton Krenak, which was a militant for indigenous rights, he says that humans are only a very small cell of this living organism that has no borders. That tree, the Amuama, shows how us as human beings can live differently and create differently, opening new perspectives, new prospects for this period, which is called by environmentalists as the sixth extinction wave. It's a wound that would have been opening in the forest through our colonialism. Finally, we have the Diva work. It's an intervention through this very large vulva wound, which is more than 30 meters long and 6 meters deep. It was sculpted in a hill covered in resin and painted in red. It's located in the artistic park of the Art Factory, which is an old sugarcane factory or sugar factory in the south of Pernambuco state. And this art factory created a artistic residency program together with Aloysio Magalhães Museum in Recife. Within this project and under invitation by the museum, I created this work. At the end of 2020, when I posted on social media showing the work after it was concluded, the post and me, we were severely attacked on social media. It became a viral image and it was shown in digital media in many different countries. This work was attacked by the followers of Bolsonaro, the far-right followers of this of our president, and this shows the structural patriarchal character of Brazilian society and their hate speech, and the hate speech of the current president of Brazil, a far-right politician. His words, his behaviors, and his policies
uma espécie de
Jesus. Jesus Christ. What is all going on?
gênero, agredindo a diversidade étnico-racial do país e aprofundando as desigualdades.
Desafortunadamente hay una interrupción de la interpretación del portugués.
Dos combustíveis.
Fascism is spreading through the country. The vulva, which is a symbol of women, has been attacked, censored, and hidden throughout the centuries. This reflects the sexist structure that submits non-male bodies, either cis or trans bodies, which do not conform to the phallocentric values of our society. Menstrual blood and the anus are considered as taboos. On the other hand, the phallus is considered as a symbol of courage, strength, power. So the penis is considered as a totem. And this creates symbolic inequalities that have to be fought against. I believe Diva had the capacity to mobilize large structures. It launched a large debate, a debate about the sacred dimension of the vulva and the fear that it evokes in people. Menstrual blood is also an element that capitalist patriarchal society tries to abolish. It is considered dirty and shameful, and the vulva is considered as an organ solely for procreation. Diva symbolizes sexuality and also death. We're all born from a vagina, and we'll all go back to the earth when we die. The discourse is not centered on the genital question, but it opens colonial wounds which go beyond gender issues. There is also a discussion on the types of femininity beyond denouncing violence against bodies, including the body of our planet Earth. The question of race and class is also present. There was a lot of criticism to a photo that I showed on social media showing how the work was done. I'm a white woman present in the in first plane, and there are workers, most of them black, working in the background. This reflects Brazilian society. Art is a very elitist field and is not separated from society. It mirrors society, including all of its problems. I understand that as an image, it reinforces structural racism that exists in Brazil since colonization, but I believe it also is a warning to denounce the trauma of colonialism up until today. These historical symptoms are responsibility of all of us, all Brazilians, because we allow these wounds to continue to be painful. So slavery, extermination of indigenous people, and the military dictatorship have left wounds that haven't been healed. So the country is still sick with them. So the workers that were hired to build that work, they are descendants of slaves and indigenous peoples, just like most urban workers and rural workers in Brazil. We know that as slavery was abolished, there was no process of justice and reparation. Black people have not been integrated properly in society. They were abandoned and they had to migrate to slums and to the periphery. And indigenous peoples had their territory sacked. In the region where the work was created, the colonial heritage is even more visible. That area was destroyed by sugarcane monoculture, which marked the history of Brazil and created deep roots which persist up until today. In that land, there is slave blood that was blood from the slaves that were killed there, and many women, slave women, were raped. So the vulva represents a wound to denounce historical wounds that haven't healed and show our sick society. At the same time, Diva indicates cure, as it also symbolizes life. I believe this kind of art allows us to fight against the narrative promoted by Bolsonaro and discuss questions of gender, race, class, and the environment. Art has suffered a lot throughout the entire term of Bolsonaro's government. We have censorship, art is criminalized, the Ministry of Culture has been abolished, and policies supporting culture have been abandoned. In the midst of all that, we know that art can still create dissent can challenge, can lead to reflection and critical thinking. Furthermore, we are facing a civilizational crisis, therefore it is urgent to establish alliances with different epistemologies and ways of life that go against the Western and patriarchal and neoliberal views, which are intolerant and violent to anything that is foreign, that is not a white, cis, rich white man. It is also against other cultures and or other species which are considered as lower than them. This is what my art talks about. Artistic practice includes different narratives, different to those which are hegemonic. Therefore, it is a space to create dissent. We challenge the relations of domination produced by this system, thus creating dissent, which allow us to see other ways to feel and see the relationships between humans and between humans and non-humans, creating political meaning to create other ways of seeing the world and politics. First of all, for us Brazilians, so that we can see these new ways of being, we have to fight against barbarism and the far right, which is massacring our people and sacking our country. For that we have to say Bolsonaro must go, Lula has to be the president in 2023. And I stay here.
I apologize for being so long.
Giuliana, devo dire anche le immagini che avevamo.
Thank you, Juliana. I think the image that we saw in the background were quite strong, and they invited us to think about what you said. I will now give the floor to Nespo.
Dzień dobry.
Good afternoon, or good evening rather. Thank you for inviting me here. I would like my presentation to be shown on the screen if it's possible at all.
Przepraszam, ale musimy poczekać, żeby...
I'm terribly sorry, but we have to wait. We have to switch screens.
Może po prostu zacznę.
Okay, so once again, I am Nespun. I am a street artist. I was invited here to talk about my individual experiences related to links between politics and arts. Since I'm a street artist and urban artist, I will focus on this area because I know it very well firsthand. I will share my experiences. Street art, in common knowledge, is identified with mural art, but this is not true. These are separate areas of art. But it is true that both these areas are dominated by men. What are the reasons for this state of affairs? A real street art is illegal, is related to some sort of a personal risk. Depending on the country, we are talking about being fined, being arrested, or being violently punished. Therefore, in order to be ready to do this, to be susceptible to this violence, basically we are talking about men who are more ready to undergo all this violence. Now let me show you a brief film. This is a pure street art. If we could just increase volume, please. This is my kind of performing art, totally illegal. As you can see, I work during the day, at night, in crowded places, in isolated places, and I believe that you have to be courageous enough to do it.
Z kolei muralizm, malowanie...
Murals are very demanding physically. It's similar to construction work. You have to use heavy equipment, you have to carry buckets filled with paints. This is work that is done in different weather conditions. This type of physical work is usually undertaken by men. Why me in this type of street art? This is a very spontaneous decision. Imagine me painting paintings at home. This was a very intimate kind of art. This was very personal. I would paint very abstract, depressive paintings. I fought with my demons and I tried to translate my demons and show them on paintings. But I decided to change and I dabbled in earthenware. But then I decided to go for a street art, and this is one of my installations. This is going to be just a 1-minute video.
To są jakby dwa, i street art.
This is a combination of street art and murals. This is a different type of activity and a different type of energy. This is a very hard physical work, as you can see.
Każdy muralista, który...
Every mural artist has to use all this equipment that you can see on the screen. This is the reason why there are not that many women in mural art.
Ceramika to jedno z najstarszych...
Earthenware and ceramics are one of the eldest types of art, and it is difficult to come up with something new. Therefore, I decided to look for new aspects of this traditional art. I decided to put one of my works on the streets without asking for permission. Having done that, my life changed. I started perceiving public space in a different manner. It became my painting, it became my source of energy. It wasn't related to adrenaline shots. It was related to freedom, to openness. Street art means freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of giving new styles its own format. It is the way of expressing ourselves, and this fascinated me. The basic motive of my works are laced doilies. It is doilies that chose me. It wasn't I who chose doilies, because I thought of them as outdated form of art. I thought of my grandma when I thought of doilies. But I decided to go for it, and I decided to use lace that reminds of mandala patterns. And these mandala patterns require no further tables. I can use it on streets, I started combining different forms and expressions. These lace doilies started to cover individual neighborhoods. I created big installations. Afterwards, I decided to paint a mural. Using laces, I found out how feminine this form of art is. No man would dare to use laces. And this encouraged me because I wanted to express myself in my own manner. Sometimes lace doilies are related to grandparents, to something traditional. Usually lace doilies are done by grandmothers, somebody who is related to warmth, to family, to household, to generosity, to love. And therefore my art is very feminine. My art embraces, but at the same time attracts women, even the elderly women. 70% of all those who follow me are women. But I have to admit that I've never felt discriminated when performing my art. I will show you a good example of how well my art is related to women. I will show you a brief video showing my performance, focusing on painting laced doilies. When I was painting these lace doilies, the police came and they kept asking me, "What are you doing here? It's forbidden, it's illegal." And a group of elderly women leaving the church started to talk with the policeman. They discussed the whole issue so vehemently that the police simply left. I decided to focus on lace doilies because for hundreds of years this was this form of art that brought women together. These women would sing together, they would use embroidery as the way of their own expression. Lace doilies built individual groups and neighborhoods. I visited Greece, where women still perform the same art together in one single neighborhood. During our work, we felt as one. One of the main characteristics of women is that we are gentle. And the way that I express myself is also related to being gentle. This gentleness is also related to what the little prince said: instead of fighting evil, do good. And I always try to do good when expressing myself through art. Now let me show you some of the murals that I conducted in Poland and in Berlin. In Poland there are many buildings with facades that still have bullet holes. And this is a building close to the place where I live. This is the school where kids see these bullet holes that were left here, and this is the remainder of the Second World War. I decided to plug these holes with clay, and this clay was combined together as one. I wanted to heal these wounds, these bullet holes, and I wanted to say, this is history, now let's move on. This is another example of my performance in the Balkans. This is the mural that I painted in Mostar. This is one of the buildings that was full of bullet holes. I don't want to go back to the war in Yugoslavia, but the most horrific aspect of this war was violence and rapes. I decided to express myself through this mural using the bullet holes. I wanted to show them clearly. I wanted these bullet holes to become part of the mural. And these bullet holes were very well known, just as well known as this doily pattern. No matter what religion or ethnic minority the women passing through this mural were, they told me, "This is what I know, this is part of my identity." And I wanted to relate to this identity. Currently, we are dealing with the Ukrainian identity. We see hundreds of thousands of women and children coming from Ukraine, and I will try to express their identity through art. When all the channels of art expressions are closed or inaccessible, we use street art to express ourselves. This is what happened during the communist times. With all the artistic expressions and channels of artistic expressions were closed, we expressed ourselves on the walls. This is the picture taken 40 years ago. 7 years ago, peace took over the power. They started limiting our rights. They introduced very harsh legal provisions related to abortion. They wanted to change the mindset of our society. And we decided to put stop to all this movement. We wanted to express ourselves. We want to show that all the values that we share in the EU should not be forgotten in Poland. Since most of the media in Poland are now governed by the government, we took to the streets and we decided to use street art. This is one of the images showing one of the demos that we organized. I'm sorry, yes, it is I with my daughter participating in one of the demonstrations, feminine demonstrations. We wanted to show that we are in favor of the EU values. What is interesting that these demos are very frequent now. There used to be a time when we would organize demos every week. And you can see on the streets of Warsaw many street art elements being the way of expressing ourselves. Apart from fighting for women's rights and for fighting for LGBTQI rights, we have to fight our government because the conservative ruling party started logging trees in the last primal forests in Poland. They ignore all the environmentalists and all our demands. What I did, I decided to do imprints of the trees in clay. Then I used a furnace to show this primal art and this primal expression between the art and nature. And this is the final 1-minute video.
Tam, gdzie pobrałam te odciski.
So I collected these samples from a forest which no longer exists. It's all been cut down. These trees don't exist anymore.
W polskiej wersji tego filmu
in the Polish version of this short film, there was also a request to sign a petition. There were links to various organizations which fought against the cutting down of the forest. But now further logging is going on, because we are talking about the last primeval forest in the European Union. So this is extremely valuable. And this primeval forest is still being cut down, is still being logged. I know that in Brazil, this is also a major problem, the logging of the forests, that this goes on a great scale. Thank you very much for your attention.
To wszystko.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Nespun. I also would like to invite all and each of you to put any question you would like to our speakers and artists, and I also would like to break the ice with my own question to both of you, because I see there is also something in common between your respective experience, your capacity to provoke, for example, through arts. So the fact of using art also to raise the awareness about something, and also as a tool to communicate what can and must be done. You have told us about the negative reactions to your works. I also would like to know more about the positive reactions that your experiences have raised. So what is the positive assessment and voice has been somehow raised thanks to your works?
Né, claro, né? Eu acho que esse...
Of course, I think my last work, which was the Diva intervention, started by being attacked on social media on a worldwide scale. And whether you like it or not, it was a far-right movement, and it was far-right supporters of Bolsonaro that attacked my work. And after that, the work went viral throughout the world, and a debate was created, which was very important. And it was very positive in the end, because whether they like it or not, they help give lots of visibility to the work. And after that, there were also criticisms from the left on issues related to transphobia and to racial questions. Regardless of those criticisms, a debate was started in a number of countries, especially Brazil, allowing people to discuss those issues which have to be discussed. So in that sense, in that regard, that work opened up new possibilities to deal with these questions in a worldwide scale, questions of misogyny, sexism. It was on the first page of The Guardian. They showed my work, and that created, that gave the work a political character, because Bolsonaro's guru, who has recently died, he's called Olavo de Carvalho, he wrote in his Twitter account to his millions of followers that among that confusion, he asked, why are you so concerned about a giant pussy of 33 meters? This is a question to be challenged with a big dick. That's what he said. So that showed very clearly what kind of politics he's talking about in Brazil, and we see the same in the rest of the world. So discussing these questions of sexism, misogyny was very important. There was an English tabloid, the Daily Mail, which censored that image because British newspapers reach large parts of the world, and so in China, in India, CNN, they showed the photo of that work, which is not necessarily a vulva. It's not a vagina. It's a sculpture, and it has different meanings. But they pixelated the image, and even there was an image of the reflection of the work in a lake, and they pixelated that as well. So that shows a level of misogyny, of hatred and anger against women. So it's obvious that. Well, when I did that work, of course, I live on planet Earth, and I know that we've lived through centuries of patriarchy, and that would obviously create some repercussion. But I never thought that would happen on a worldwide scale. nowadays with social media, with digital technologies, it's incredible how quickly things can spread. So the positive side of that was precisely that. It created a debate, also a debate on the environment, on trans issues, racial issues, gender issues. So that was the positive side, because those attacks have a positive side. You know, everything has its silver lining, and that is that art is there not to give us answers, but to create difficulties, to create questions, to find problems and raise debates. So I thought that was very positive.
Grazie mille.
Thank you very much.
Ja chyba jestem jakoś przeciwna.
Thank you. Perhaps what I can say is a counterbalance, because my art is not so divisive, I would say. It unites, I think. Whenever I create a mural, when I create a performance or an installation, people pass by, they see what I'm doing, and they pass this place every day because they live there, they work there, their parents live there. So if somebody comes by every day and they see me working every day, and when they see me the second day, the third day, the fourth day, they are more and more sympathetic to me. They bring me food, they offer a good word. People who pass by and see me every day working on a mural, on an installations, they like it, and they want to support me and help me. When I'm painting a lace pattern, I always try to paint something which is reminiscent of local patterns. So local women show me their local patterns, their local doilies, and I select something from that. I want to paint something local, and this encourages other women to come to me, that they bring their works, they bring their husbands, their daughters, and they want to talk. And it's older people, it's younger people. So it all has a unifying effect. So that's what I like to say. Lace art unites people. That's what I like to say.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing your work. Thank you very much for what you do. And now I would say that now we are coming at the end of this part, and then there will be also an artistic exhibition.
Mhm. Tak, ja będę robiła krótki.
Yes, I will carry out a short performance. It's about thoughts, about thinking. This performance will be downstairs. I think it's the most important project of my life. I have been doing it for the last 10 years. And it's about meditation, about thinking. Well, I have been devoting 2 or 3 months every year in the last 10 years to preparing this project. Actually, this is a project which will span 30 years. So in 2042, in the year 2042, there will be a final exhibition, and what I will create from porcelain will be accessible to everyone. And because the material I will create this project with will be porcelain, it will produce beautiful sound. So when you will be handling these porcelain pieces, it will create beautiful sound. It will be like the sound of the sea, and we will not be able to hear our own thoughts. So this whole project, this idea is about resetting our own thoughts. So when we enter the exhibition, when we play with those porcelain pieces, then we will not hear our own thoughts, as I said. So this is why I call it a reset.
No meu caso, né, é uma...
In my case, what I'll do is some kind of action. It's not exactly a performance, it's an intervention. And it has to do with my work over more than 20 years. It will be a way to denounce the violence against women's bodies over the centuries. And it's a continuity of my work, of my previous performances that you've seen on video, with questions such as blood, violence. And I think it's a beautiful kind of work. And I see that Nispoon's work has that thing with lace, which is a way of uniting thread, uniting cultures, uniting generations. And what I do is, in a way, it's the same, but it's in another way. We're talking about trauma, the trauma that women feel. So each artist has their own way of doing their poetry, and clearly there's a contrast between my work, which is more violent and tries to work by denouncing those wounds and the trauma. I can think how many women in my family. People ask me if I've been raped, but I wasn't. But I can think of how many women in my family throughout centuries were victims of violence, rape, murder. So this is something that's been present among women throughout the centuries, and this is something we have in common in a way. So it's also a very feminine way to share this ancient reality that we live and that has been repressed by patriarchy. So both our works are ways of capturing these ancient ways of being a woman, thinking about other people, thinking throughout the generations. So yeah, I think there are many points of contact between the two kinds of work that we do. But thank you very much. I really enjoyed our discussion. I consider myself to be from the global south, and but I'm very happy to be here in Europe talking about all these questions. Thank you very much.
Grazie a voi.
Thanks you.
Thank you.